Oh, what's up, everybody? I just finished reviewing Oppenheimer, and uh, there's a review on my channel for that if you want to know my thoughts on Oppenheimer. I tried to leave out as much about the actual experience, the theatrical experience from my perspective as possible, so I could talk about it in a different video. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com. Click the subscribe button. I feel like we always have to do that, especially because I'm low. I mean, if I was at 2 million subscribers, I would just assume people naturally subscribe. But anyway, I'm not. So I need subscribers. I have to whore myself. And I'm a blind film critic, and I'm trying to do something important here. So um, I'm going to call this video Why Blind People Don't Go to the Theaters. um, it doesn't mean we don't, because we do, but why it's so selective and why some blind people are not there every week, why a lot of answers to these questions. I think we can talk about that. So I haven't been to the theaters in a while. I used to work for movie theaters. I've mentioned that in some other videos. I worked for 4 different movie theater chains. I'll even cite them. I've worked for AMC, Regal, B&B Theaters, and Premier Theaters. I worked for all 4 chains. So I know what's up. And I had over 10 years of theater experience. I've done everything. I was in a projection booth. I was a manager, so I have a lot of theater experience. So when I can speak to it. I'm also now blind, so I can speak to that. I was asked to watch Oppenheimer for a podcast that I was asked to be a guest on. They specifically wanted to talk about Oppenheimer and asked if I could see it. And I was like, you know what? I haven't been in a while. Sure, I need to get out and do more. And maybe audio description has been made better. I've heard some good things from some people who have had great experiences. Maybe mine will be better. So I went to a Regal, and first off, my pre-theater experience was simply, I've enjoyed living in an area where I could see, and I drove around it. I knew all the roads, and I knew where everything looked, and I knew the buildings. And I was almost willing. The funny thing was, I was going to Uber by myself, and then somebody was like, "No, I want to go with you. I'll take you." They didn't want to see the movie, but they just didn't want me to go by myself. And I was like, "Path of least resistance, fine." Sometimes it's good to have a sighted person for certain things, and it turned out I needed this person because I needed them to go find a manager. Anyway, so good to have it. And it was also good to have it because for whatever reason, this theater on Barbenheimer, weekend has decided to completely reconstruct the entire facade, exterior facade. The whole thing is just, it's like it's all being torn down and rebuilt. And they added stairs in places where there weren't stairs, which would have killed me because I wouldn't even have thought that there were stairs there, I'd been to this theater since 2002, and I'd watched hundreds of movies there. It wasn't one that I worked for, but it was one that because I had worked for Regal, that I did end up taking a class there when we all had to do when Regal started serving alcohol. I had to go there for my alcohol certification. So I'm incredibly familiar with the theater. It's also the same layout as the theater that I did work for. It's a 20 screen versus a 20 screen with the same numberings. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's basically a copy. And there was active construction. And the path that they had set up for people to walk involved us having to literally cross the street and go to the other side and then come back around because there was so much construction that we had to go completely around it, and then come up on it. And then suddenly there were stairs, and I was like, there's never been stairs here before. They obliterated the box office. Regal had decided, we're going to just sell tickets at concessions, or you'll have the Regal Unlimited, and you can just They asked us if we had a membership number, and I was like, no. And I won't be getting one if the audio description doesn't get any better than what I had, so that's never gonna happen. I bought the tickets at the concession stand, which was the first time I encountered that was when I worked for Premier Theaters. But I mean, it's fine if that's what you want to do. Is have everybody go to concessions. Cool to buy tickets. They just obliterated the box office. They decided they don't need box office cashiers anymore. It's shocking to me, but I mean, I remember when we used to stand there and stare at times, you know, because you'd show up and your movie would be sold out. Because not everybody buys tickets in advance on Fandango, and sometimes you do actually show up and you're like, oh shit, my movie's sold out. Damn. All right, well, what else do we want to see? I guess that's gone for sighted people. But bought the ticket. I got an ADA ticket, which was nice. And I got to sit in the ADA row without any fight. Last time I had been to this theater, it was like a battle to sit in an ADA row when no one else was sitting in it. They were like, but that's for wheelchairs. And I was like, but nobody's sitting there. But that's for wheelchairs. I'm like, it's true. Okay, true. But they're not guaranteed that seat, like, permanently until the end of time. They're guaranteed that seating until the movie starts. There's no one there. I think it's safe to say the seats are up for grabs. So, yes, I got it this time with no fuss. They just put me in the seat. It was great. I loved it. So thanks for that. Thanks for the no fuss this time around. And I was given a headset. And it was different than the headsets that I used to hand out. So I was immediately optimistic. I was like, oh, we've improved. Thank God it's not this giant fucking box. It's this little tiny thing that had a card with a lanyard attached to it. And that was my audio description. And with a pair of giant sort of noise canceling headset type stuff, like huge bulky over the ear headsets. And I was very optimistic. Went into the theater. My film didn't start on time. It started late. Even for previews. Like, my film was a 10:40 start time. The commercials started at 10:45. Those commercials that run before the previews started at 10:45. And then the previews started. And so I was there for a while for a 3-hour movie. That's all I'm going to say. I had a lot of previews, too. I was like, guys, come on, this is a 3-hour movie. Why do I have 6 previews? There was some I didn't even know what they were. And I didn't care to ask. I was just like, I thought it would be fun to ask, but I don't watch previews anymore. I've enjoyed actually being pleasantly surprised by films, but I know I had The Exorcist and The Holdovers, and the Expendables 4, is that right? I feel like that one was right. And some others. I didn't recognize all of them, but I had a pretty good guess at them. Something was super futuristic. I was like, is this Dune? Maybe this is Dune. This might be Dune. I'm not really sure. I couldn't really tell. It didn't feel like Dune, and it didn't feel like I wasn't hearing the voices that I thought I might hear in Dune, but maybe it's Dune. So that was that experience. But my headset didn't work. Got to the film, headset doesn't work. I did kind of fiddle around with it a little bit just to make sure that I wasn't doing something wrong, that there wasn't a button that I needed to hit. So, but I waited long enough. My moment was when I knew the Universal logo was hitting that screen, and there was nobody to tell me the Universal logo, and I was like, oh no. And then the film starts, and there was no audio description. And I waited a little bit just to make sure it didn't click in, because, there's a lot going on. Oppenheimer hits you right up. It smacks you in the face immediately when the film starts. It does not open quietly. It's like, welcome to Oppenheimer. Oh my God! God. Like, it's just, it's aggressive from the start. So, um, I was able to send the person I was with off to go get a replacement headset, which was nice, which is why I said sometimes it's nice to have a sighted person with you, because for me to have to get up and leave the theater and go wander around when they're reconstructing the theater I used to know, to try to find a manager, because when they took out box office, they took out the customer service desk. I don't even know where conceptually customer service is anymore. The girl at the concession stand had to call her manager. I was like, from where? Like, the customer service desk used to be where you would go to find managers. That doesn't exist anymore because you obliterated box office. So, very weird. So, I guess they just kind of stand in the lobby now and they wander. But I did end up getting um, a replacement headset. Was brought back to me. Replacement headset didn't work. So, I told the person I was with, I was like, just make sure, see if you can come to the theater this time and make sure the headset actually works instead of just continuously handing you something that doesn't work. See if he'll come here and actually check to make sure the headset works. And so she left again, and she came back and, after a while, and she was like, he swears this works. And he fixed the problem or whatever. And lo and behold, third time, headset works. However, the headset, my blind friends, what have you been doing to yourselves? Is this like this across the chains? Because that was horrendous. The audio quality is so terrible. It's awful. The quality on the headset is degraded. I love the terms I've already come up with, so I'm just going to regurgitate them. It sounded like I was being contacted from beyond the grave. It sounded like I was talking to somebody on a cell phone who was on one bar but kept losing that one bar. It sounded like the audio, when you're watching something from the 1940s, but nobody preserved the soundtrack to that film. That's what it sounded like. It was so poor. The audio description quality, it took me a minute, actually it took me a while to figure out it was Laura Post. And I've heard Laura Post's narration a lot. I mean, I was like an hour deep into the film where I was finally like, that's Laura Post. All right, I got it. I heard it. I figured it out. But damn. I mean, not a great experience. Plus, I missed like the first 15 minutes of the film without audio description, with the walking back and forth and trying to make sure this headset works. So, yeah, I mean, it affects things. And that's why people don't go, is because we have to deal with these broken headsets and people who don't know how to work them, and they just hand them. They're like, I think this works. There you go. Go make sure it works. Go figure out. Be there. What? I don't think he had a slew of blind people where he had to bounce around 20 different theaters that day. He could have just checked to make sure the thing worked. He knew where I was sitting. I was the only people in the theater, by the way. We were the only people in the theater. The whole theater. The person I was with pointed that out, and they're like, we're the only ones in here. She was worried about leaving me, but then she stood up during the movie. She's like, actually, you're the only one in here, so don't worry about it. I was like, okay. Yeah, the only people in the entire theater, so it would have been easy to find me, to check and be like, hey, is it working? Does it work? Are you good? No, actually it doesn't. Thanks for coming here, because I was going to have to send her to you. Can you fiddle with this? Those things would be great, but they don't care because they're not blind themselves. So they've never had to deal with this stuff. And that's why I'm making this video, is because the reality is that accessibility, regardless of where you come from, whether you're coming from blind, whether you're coming from deaf, whether you're coming from wheelchair accessible, whatever it is, even if you're on the autism spectrum and you need special accommodations for sensory, all of the people who make those decisions are not disabled themselves in any way, generally. I'm sure there's like one person who proudly has made it, but they're probably so happy that they made it to where they are that they're not going to fight to reshape their entire corporate structure to make sure that those of us in the disabled community are actually served with accessibility, and that our accessibility works and that it's good accessibility. The only people who aren't disabled in any fashion who care about accessibility are the ones who sell accessibility, the ones who need it to be bought. They make accessible devices, they make accessible tools. The people who make the headsets, those are the people who care. I guarantee you there's probably a new and better version of that headset that Regal has chosen to not buy. I cannot imagine that that is the technological advancement of 2023. It was the headset that I was on, where I could barely hear anybody, and it kept cutting in and out, and then the theater was louder than the audio description. Oppenheimer's one hell of a sound design, and it just obliterated what I was hearing on headphones. So the truth is, my beats, when I listen to something off of Netflix, like when I'm at work, a lot of times, instead of listening to music, I'll listen to something with audio description. My beats will give way better sound quality than that does. Way better sound quality. This was awful. My Turtle Beaches from my Xbox days that I still have, that I use every once in a while to hop into a chat on Xbox. They have better sound quality than that, and they're kind of broken, and they're at least 10 years old, so they have better sound quality. There's so many more things that work better than this, and if this is what theaters are supporting and handing out to people, then yeah, of course we're going to seem like we're an anomaly when we show up and ask for it. Of course it's going to be like, oh my God, I had a blind person today. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't imagine everybody else is going to that theater and being like, wow, this is a great experience. Thank you so much for... normally I have to get up 7 times, but this time I only had to get up 3. So we are working in the right direction here. I can't imagine any of that's actually happening. Why are we putting ourselves through that? At home, I turn on a streaming service, I go to Netflix, I can go down to audio and languages, and I can select English audio description and go. Like, it's so much easier. The sound is balanced. It is crisp, it's clear, it's coming through. I don't have to worry about anything else. I don't have to worry about any weird reception qualities that's going to degrade the sound of my audio description. Sometimes I still... it's still not great. Like, they didn't upload the best quality, and then we get to have conversations about TTS and all these other things in the blind community. And that, I think it's great that we have those conversations about the fact that, oh, is this the best audio description? Could we have made this better? What would have made this audio description better? How do we make better audio? Is it the right narrator for the film? It should, what's your opinion on TTS / robo description? All those conversations. The reality is, we live in a world that is controlled by people who don't want us there, who don't care, who do not want to be bothered, who want to provide the minimal amount of accessibility, who are not interested in the theatrical experience. They're building this entire theatrical experience all around them. They're spending probably millions on this theatrical redesign of a theater that was perfectly fine, was not a piece of shit theater. The last time I went to it, it was perfectly fine. Very nice theater in an upscale area. And they're spending all this money on redoing this theater and obliterating the box office. But they won't spend it on things like making sure they have upgraded audio description. You know what I'm saying? They won't spend it on things that matter to people, that actually are part of the theatrical experience. Because when I'm inside that theater and I'm watching that movie, all of the other things that they've taken into consideration, the recliner seats, the subwoofer speakers, the various sizes of the screens, if you're going into something like IMAX or RPX or one of the Dolby screens, or whether you're in a 4D theater, whatever you are, it's all about the experience inside the theater. For us, part of that experience is the headset. That headset was atrocious. You know, I wouldn't give that headset to somebody I didn't like. I'd be like, I'm sorry, this is a terrible headset. Every time, if I worked there, I would be apologizing to everyone. I'd be like, this is not a good headset, but this is all we have. Um, I wish I could change this for you, and I feel terrible. Um, Mea culpa, please. They don't pay me enough, and if I say anything, I'll probably get fired. It's just, I know that has to be the culture. It's because they don't understand it and they don't need to use it. Um, so, yes, that is the reality, and every blind person who goes to a theater bravely, and I do use the word bravely, they do it, um, and they go in and they just pray. They pray that their audio description works. And I see people in these forums and they ask in advance and they're like, hey, I see it's not labeled on the website. Does this film have audio description? And, they try to check in advance and they try to look for the little logos on the websites that say this theater offers accessibility, this theater offers audio description. Why should we even have to look for that? All of you guys should offer audio description. Why is that a thing? Like, why do we have to worry about that? It should be what I'm trying to fight for is, and I use hashtag describe everything in my videos, is everything should be described. Why is it that everyone is so complacent with telling disabled people, this is your corner. We're going to go out into the rest of the room, but you guys have to stay in this corner. It's this little corner. We've created a little bit of content for you, and be happy with that. I know the furniture in this corner isn't great, but it's your corner. If you go out into the rest of the room, technically, we're not putting a fence around you. So technically, you could go out into the rest of the room. However, there's a whole bunch of things there to make your experience terrible. You'll just trip over things. There's things hanging from the ceiling. You'll hit your face. Just stairs everywhere. And it's just a nightmare. You don't really want to go out there. Because, true, we could watch a film without audio description. We end up missing a lot of it, and it's not a great experience. Depending on it gets worse with depending on what film you're watching. So I think they think because we can technically go to a theater that doesn't have audio description and watch a film, that suddenly means that everything is accessible to us. Because technically they're not stopping us from buying a ticket. Technically we could walk into that theater and watch that film. We could do a lot of things. But you could also eat broken glass, but you don't. And why is that? Why don't you eat broken glass? I don't know, because it's not a pleasant experience. That might be it. Not good for you, might be it. There's a lot of things. So, we have to do better. The theatrical community just has to do better. This was unacceptable. I didn't ask for passes. I was very polite. I left the theater. I didn't make a storm. I wasn't that angry blind guy at the end of the movie who was like, fuck you! And he just left the theater. We just thanked people and left. And because what are they going to do? These people, I'm not going to yell at somebody who's earning hourly at concession about, she can't buy new headsets. The people at Corporate Regal are the ones who are in charge of caring enough to make sure that this stuff works for all of their theaters, not just the theater I'm at, but all of their theaters. If they don't care enough about a theater that they're spending millions on to give a new face to give it a facelift, and to build stairs, I don't even know why the stairs are there. It's just mind-blowing. Did you guys raise the theater? Why are there stairs here? Conceptually, because I know how the theater used to be laid out. I was like, what did we do to add stairs? How did you lift the theater? Why are there stairs here? There was no raise before. You didn't need to climb up into the theater before. So I don't even understand how they did that or why. It's still blowing my mind. But they're doing all these changes, externally and internally to redefine this theater. But then they're way behind on this technology. Their receiver could barely hear me inside the theater. Like there was clearly a problem with my device and the receiver, which should be specific to the projector, which is like, I don't know, not that far away from me in terms of, you know, as a crow fly feet. You know what I'm saying? Like when people say as a crow fly and they don't mean like navigating, it's a little bit different because you have to kind of go up because the projection, you know, I was down and up. So it's kind of, it's not just like straight back, but it's also up a little bit. So you have to kind of adjust for that when you're talking about distance. I just used my hands in a blind video. Sorry, guys. But I assume sighted people watch me also. And you just, that's, you know, when you're in that situation and the thing doesn't pick you up, in that level of proximity, then the system is not the quality that it needs to be. You do not have the right system. You do not have the right system for your theater. Nobody checked it when they installed it. Nobody made sure that it worked. Nobody sat down and put the headset on and made sure that they could sit through a film. Sighted people, I know because I used to be one, do not sit in a theater and put the audio description device on and see whether or not the thing works. We used to have to screen movies way back in the day to make sure prints worked when they were real prints. When we used real film to make sure that your cuts were fine, that you made good splices, and that you didn't cause the frame to jump. You actually had to run the whole print through. I think it would be really valuable for people to still be screening movies. I know it's digital, so they don't have to. I think movie theaters and their employees should have to screen movies, and you should have to put on the audio description equipment. You should have to use the captioning equipment. You should have to use that stuff and make sure it works in that theater. Don't just, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't just assume that it does all the time. And train everybody so they know what, like, how to fix these devices. If the equipment is not great, it's not great quality, it's broken, it's subpar. If it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, if you're trying to create the world's greatest theatrical experience and you can't because, you know, your equipment here is not sufficient, then instead of spending $1 million to repaint the front of the theater and build stairs to a theater that didn't need them, why not instead spend money on things that matter to people, that actually change lives? There was one woman who went to a theater and she had a great experience, and she said she cried at the end of Oppenheimer. Don't you want that? Isn't that why we're supposed to go to the theaters? In a day and age when everybody just keeps saying, oh, it's the theatrical experience, it's the theatrical experience, it's the theatrical experience, you can't get it anywhere else. I get better at home. Because at home, my audio description is more reliable than that. I don't have to get up and go somewhere 3 times to get workable audio description. My biggest complaint is calling the various services to try to get them to add audio description to a title that doesn't have one. But when it's there, you know, I'm not like, oh, it's fading in and out. Or, well, it says this has audio description, but unfortunately, the headsets that I don't have to wear because I'm at home don't work. You know, I don't have to worry about stuff like that. So I don't want to discourage blind people from going to theaters, because if we stop going, you know, then they won't notice. So I need to go to the theaters more. But at the same time, we have to figure out a way how to get people to do better. I have an idea. I'm going to post another video here in a couple of days. But yeah, it's I'm realizing more and more that I no longer give a shit about anything else except audio description. Because if I don't give a shit about it, if I can't advocate for myself and for my community, who's going to do it? Because the people who don't use it, they have no need to advocate for it unless they're selling it. And the people who are selling it, I don't know that what they're selling is the best audio description equipment. I don't know that it is. So somebody sold Regal that shitty audio description equipment and that shitty receptor that was crackling in and out, and I'm pretty certain I'm now haunted from a spirit from the dead. So, it's just the whole thing didn't quite land for me. And that is a large part of why people don't go to theaters anymore, why blind people do not go to theaters, is because you don't make us feel welcome. You do not take the time to actually make sure the equipment works. You have managers who really don't care. This was a 10:40 a.m. screening, by the way. There was that manager had nothing else to do. I've been a manager at 10:40 a.m. I'm sorry, like he could have easily walked down to that theater for 5 minutes and made sure that thing worked. There's nothing else he had going on at 10:40 in the morning. If it was me at 10:40 in the morning, I would have been sitting at customer service when it used to exist, waiting for somebody to need me. That's what I would have been doing at 10:40 in the morning. It's too early to pull anybody's concessions. There wasn't a flood of people anywhere, so you didn't need to back up your concessionists. There's no need for it. You don't have a box office anymore, so it's not like you need to be out of box office. And there's no guest services for him to sit out anymore, so you don't need to sit there. What else are you doing? So anyway, this is a long ass video, but this kind of shit is important. I think 2 people will watch this video. That's my guess. Three people, because the reality is, this makes people uncomfortable to talk about it. Blind people don't have a problem talking about it because we're blind. We can talk about it with ourselves, people in the audio description community, a large chunk of whom are blind themselves, also don't mind talking about it. People who are, spouses, children of blind people, they don't mind talking about it. The general populace avoids you like the plague. I made essentially the same post on my Facebook feed and in one group that was an audio description community, and I got tons of likes and comments already. I made virtually the same post with some slight changes on my own personal feed. Nothing. Crickets. Because I make people uncomfortable. My blindness makes people uncomfortable. The reality is that they would prefer if we just were not there. So, unfortunately, I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here with the YouTube channel. So, please subscribe, please like, because things like this actually matter and actually are important. And I will make a happier video about something else, I'm sure. But I will also be making one shortly with a challenge. And we'll see how that goes. We'll see if somebody with 153 YouTube supporters can make a change in this world. Probably not, but I'm going to try. I will see you guys on the other side, and thanks for subscribing.